Okay, well, hello everyone. We'll get started and we'll just see if anyone else is joining us along the way here. But today's topic is two promises your brand must make to attract today's top talent. And what we're promising in today's talk is we're going to show you exactly what you need to do to get the talent that you need so that your business can meet its objectives. Because we all know that it's gotten really hard to fill your open positions. And when we put out ads now for jobs, we're not getting the same response we used to.
Right.
But what's going on with the talent? Well, today, top talent expects employers to prove that they have a great workplace where employees can grow and fulfill their values. And what we want to show you is that you can become a top talent magnet by showcasing your culture and employee experience in your employment brand. And we'll explain what all those things are along the way. So who's this talk for? Well, this is for you if, well, maybe your culture and employee experience aren't quite where you want them to be. Well, we're going to show you what you can do about that. And this is for you if your employees really love your company, and we see this all the time, but you have a hard time attracting new talent to your team. And so we've worked with companies where all their employees stay a really long time, even those millennials and Generation Z, and they stick around. But when they put out ads for open positions, they're getting nothing, and they're competing with bigger companies. But what we've shown them is that if people know about how great it is in your company, you'll be able to attract talent. And finally, this is for you if you know that if people understood your company culture, they'd be knocking down the door to work there. And that's what it really comes down to in this talk is the culture that you have in your company. So what are we going to cover? What will we talk about? Well, we're going to explain the difference between employee engagement and employee experience and why you must have both of these.
Oops, sorry, wrong click.
Wrong
There we go.
direction. Okay. Then we'll show you how to understand and showcase your employee experience. So how you can take those good experiences that the people that really love it there and broadcast it out so that you can attract more people like them into your company. And then finally, we'll show you what you must do to turn your company culture and employee experience into an attractive employment brand. And that's really what Ed Crow here and I are all about. We're all about taking the good things about your company and marketing it so that employees or candidates out there want to become employees in your company.
Paul, I don't know that I shared this with you, but I'll share it now and share it with the attendees that I do, like most of us, I do some volunteering, and the one not for profit I'm on the board of right now was struggling. They're small, but they were struggling to fill a couple key positions, and so I trained their executive director on our style of writing job posts and everything. She called yesterday. They are fully staffed for the first time in months. She said, Ed, I couldn't believe the difference just in changing how we were communicating our mission worked and the level of applicant that came in. I was like, that's awesome, right? I mean, that's exactly what can happen regardless of the size of the organization.
Yeah, and just changing the mindset and the language you're using. We're going to show you just how different the people out there looking for jobs are and how our old rules for recruitment, they just don't work anymore. All right, so we've been running this webinar series for over a year now. We run one a month, and I just want to tell you why we do this. And I'll tell you why how Ed and I met a little while ago here. But first of all, we're doing this webinar series for free, so it's really great to be able to share this content because we want to make a difference in the quality of workplaces and just make the whole experience of working better for everyone. And then finally, we love seeing employers and employees thrive. So that's why we're doing this, and we want to provide a lot of value along the way.
And it's fun. We got to throw in there, and it's fun.
Yeah, and we get to hang out here on Zoom together. And
Yeah.
actually, Ed and I, we only actually met in person last year or the year before.
September a year ago, or
Yeah,
has
and
it been? No, been over a year now, maybe.
yeah,
Okay.
that's crazy. But anyway, and we had worked together for 3 years before that. We got somebody. Can you mute them, Ed?
Got somebody on mute. Okay, there we go.
So let's tell you about the next month's webinar. So next month, April 10th, we are going to be running Why Today's Top Talent Expect a Curated Candidate Experience. And we'll touch on what the candidate experience is, I think, today,
A little bit
maybe
today, yeah, a little bit.
a little bit.
Enough to
But
tease, right?
we're going to talk about why you are going to want to really craft that and do a good job. And it's all part of the employment brand. So let's talk about who we are. Well, Ed, here, I'll let you step in and introduce yourself.
Yeah. So, hey everyone, Ed Crow. I think I know some of you in the room today, but not all. So welcome to my new friends. I am the talent transformation expert for companies seeking eight-figure growth, and I work with them to develop the systems and the leadership and management abilities they need to really thrive in the workplace and become that employer of choice. And what I love about working with Paul, and when I met him back, it was actually during the pandemic, listened to him talk and loved how he crafted his messages and said, this is something I need in my business. And so I actually used Paul for a couple things. And then the more we got to know each other, the more I said, I see a connection in how, I can help my clients to build these great organizations, but if they hide their light under the bushel basket, it doesn't do them any good. And I saw how bringing Paul in to help tell their story and then teaching them to market that story would be a really cool thing to incorporate. And so that's the stuff we've been doing together for the last 3 years now. So Paul, tell the folks in here about this doctor in front of your name.
Okay, well, I started out as a chiropractor. I did that for 16 years and really enjoyed private practice. What's really cool is you get to meet a lot of people, and in the conversations you have with them, they tell you their story and they share what's going on because yeah, they're in to see you about the pain in their neck, pain in their back, carpal tunnel syndrome, all those sort of things, and we want to fix those physical problems, but when you want to find out what's behind those problems, you need to get deeper into what their story is. And more often than not, what I found is that there was a lot of stress, um, and people were under a lot of pressure, and it was all coming from work. Well, not all of it. I mean, of course, we have like life stress from relationships and obligations and stuff. But for the most part, you could always link it back to workplace stress. And so when I got to working with Ed, and on working on stories for his business, I thought, wow, you know what? I could work on the other side of the desk here and not just be treating the result of people's stress, but we could actually work on changing the situation and what was causing the stress and make the environment nicer. Now I don't work as a chiropractor anymore. I'm a brand storyteller. I'm a publisher and a ghostwriter, and I have a publishing company called Expert Author Press. And we actually write books for business leaders, executives, and thought leaders to position their brands as a dominant brand in the market.
Let's keep moving here.
Oh, you know what? I wanted to ask
Oh,
because
please,
it's really
please, yes.
important for this talk is I want you to think about what are your company's core values. And if you can't think of them, go on your website now or wherever they are and find them
Yeah.
because we want to have those upfront in your mind because we'll be talking about those later on. I'll hand it back to you, Ed.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. I know you and I talked about that in the green room, and here we're jumping right in. We get so excited we get ahead of ourselves sometimes. But as Paul said, knowing your company values is critical. Our attendees, and from those of you that I know in the room today, are a lot of you are in HR, higher level management positions. So you should know what your company's values are. Hopefully they are, if not being lived, because I know that can be a challenge, at least they're published, they're on a wall, there's something, right? Because knowing that and knowing whether or not we're living those values or how we're living those values is what leads us to the vibe in our workplace. What is it really like to work in your environment? And when I think about that, and I ask clients that, they'll say, "Oh, it's cool here." Well, I don't know what that means, right? And so when I ask you to think about what the vibe is in your workplace, I want you to be honest. Write down for yourselves what it's like. When you walk in, what do you feel? Now, the reality is it a party every day at work? No. Are there tough days? Absolutely. So I don't want you to confuse what Paul and I are talking about with making some sort of utopian work environment. Okay. What we're talking about is creating a vibe that allows people to say, you know what, today's kind of a cruddy day. Nothing's going right. The customers are complaining, employees are banging on my door, whatever it happens to be. But you know what? I don't mind facing those challenges. I don't mind facing uh, those hurdles because this is a good place to be. And that's what we really want to strive for. That's the vibe that we want going through. And I'm so blessed in my work that I get to work with so many different types of companies, from not for profits to manufacturing to services, from publicly traded to privately held, and all different sizes of revenues. And every company has its own vibe, some of them better than others, obviously. But I'll tell you one thing I can always feel, always, is a negative vibe in the workplace. And if I'm going out to meet a new prospect and I walk in and I don't have a good vibe, I actually think twice about whether I want to engage with them as a client because I want to enjoy my work with them, just like their employees want to enjoy work with them. And so I am always taking measure of that. And certainly I've walked away from some opportunities where the vibe, I just thought, this is not going to be a good fit for me. And so that's what our people are assessing. Maybe not consciously. It might be just something that they don't even really think about. But every day they're like, what's it like here? And if we can keep them at a point where they're saying, this is a good place to be. Maybe I don't have the highest pay here, but you know what? I like it here. I like my coworkers. I like the work that I'm doing. I like the customers I get to associate with. If we can satisfy those things, we can combat to a certain extent some of what's going on in the market, which is just this, hey, I'm going to hop for another buck an hour, or I can go across the street and work at the convenience store for $15 an hour or whatever, right? So we've got to address those things as business professionals today. And so that leads us into this idea of employee engagement. Now, I want to be very, very clear. Today's topic is not about employee engagement. In fact, we're going to make some big differentiators between the things that Paul and I espouse and employee engagement. That doesn't mean it's not important. It's highly important, right? These people are hanging out. They got pizza probably for doing something fun. Not sure why the one lady's on her phone and the background there and not really engaging with her coworkers. But this is a great example of employee engagement, right? We celebrate something as a team. We got through busy season. We landed the big client. It's someone's birthday, anniversary with the company, whatever it happens to be. These types of things, whether it's pizza or a dress down day or a wear your favorite sports team shirt day. Those things are important for us, okay? And they do make people feel good. They make people feel happy in the moment. They don't always carry over. And that's why what Paul and I are going to talk to you about today is more than simply employee engagement. We're going to toss out this concept of an employee experience in the workplace. And engagement is only one piece of the employee experience. And so when you think about employee experience, I want you to get your pens out again. What is it like to be an employee at your place of business? And I want you to think of it through a couple of different lenses. So What's it like to be working in the office where you work? Maybe you have, like in this picture, a factory floor where people are out welding, putting parts through machines, what have you. What's it like for those folks? Maybe you have folks that maybe you're in construction and you've got folks that work out in the elements. What's it like for them? What's it like for a delivery driver, and so on, right? The answer could be and should probably be very different. But here's the thing. I was talking about employee experience last fall at a conference, and this conference was a group of nursing home and assisted living care facility administrators. And I was talking about this concept of employee experience. And one of the ladies raised her hand. She says, Ed, you know what our frontline people do, right? And I said, yes, I've been in nursing homes. I have nursing homes as clients. My grandmother was in a nursing home for some time. Yes, I get that the work that those frontline folks, those LPNs, those CNAs, that what they do may not be glamorous. However, when they went into that profession, they knew through their training what they were to expect as part of that profession, that it was not always going to be glamorous. A welder, like in this picture, knows, hey, I'm doing important work, but it's not going to be glamorous. This guy's sitting here, or gal is sitting in a confined space in some tank, crouched over, welding a joint, right? But there's a reason they chose to go into welding. And so what I don't want you to do is I don't want you to say, oh gosh, Ed, we're in an industry where it's filthy out on our manufacturing floor. And so I can't drive a good employee experience. No, you absolutely can drive a good employee experience despite the challenges that your unique workplace might bring to the table. And we're going to show you how. And so here's the thing. As I said, employee engagement is not employee experience, okay? But when we design an employee experience, here's what it is, okay? So if you look at the gray ball here, employees come to us with certain expectations and needs and wants. Some of those are the simple things. If you go back to your psychology classes, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? People want food, shelter, clothing, safety. They want those basic things, okay? It's up to us, though, to say, okay, when the employees come to us and say that they have these certain needs and wants, how do we design our programs to meet those employees' needs and wants? Those two balls where they overlap, that's the employee experience. So maybe you have pizza every Friday, and every Monday you can wear your favorite sports team's jerseys. But in between there, your managers are ogres. They treat your people horribly. There's no teamwork in your work environment. Okay, that's my experience. And it probably is not meeting my needs and wants for some camaraderie in the workplace, for a boss that treats me respectfully and values my input and opinion, to work in a place where I feel safe and where I feel needed for my talents and the time and effort that I'm putting into driving results. And so that employee experience is it's kind of that at the end of the week, what am I thinking about my job? Right? Is what I just went through worth what got deposited into my bank account this Friday? Therein is the employee experience. And what we're seeing in the marketplace today with people hopping based on money, I will tell you this. Yes, if you are not meeting people's needs and wants, they're going elsewhere. Whether that's for money or something else, they will go elsewhere. Right now, it just happens to be for money. And you're probably sitting there saying, yeah, and I can't always fix the money thing. We get it, because it's not always about money. In fact, one of my not-for-profit clients is struggling with a certain type of worker right now that a for-profit competitor is stealing from them because they train these people so well to do their job. And they're paying them $5,000 more a year. And of course, being a not-for-profit, that's a big number. And the HR director said to me, Ed, I can't compete with that. I mean, they're stealing 2, 3, 4 people a month from me. I can't do this. And I said, okay, well, I get that. So what are you hearing in your exit interviews? And she said, Ed, every single person tells me how much they love it here, but they just can't turn down that much money. I said, okay. Because my sense, I've been working with this client for almost 20 years now, is they've got a great vibe in their workplace. And so I believe people when they say in their exit interview, we love this place and we just can't pass up the money. But here's the thing. Several of them are now starting to come back after 6, 7, 8 months with this competitor. Why? Because what they failed to think about was, okay, I'm not going to have the exact same workplace as I have now. So the question is, what are they going to expect of me in exchange for that extra $5,000? And what these people were finding is they didn't like the vibe of the new workplace. The work demands were much higher. And so the value proposition wasn't there. And they realized, gosh, I did have the greener grass where I was. Now, it stinks for my client, right? Because they have to go without this person for some time. But they're doing the right thing by their people with the employee experience. And that's what's going to drive attraction to your company, and it's what's going to drive retention to your company. And I'll share some more stories as will Paul as we go along this afternoon. So Paul, I'm going to throw it back at you here for the next couple slides.
Great, thanks, Ed. So what Ed's been saying is like there are things that people value more than money, and right on the surface, it can be hard to see. And at the time when somebody's leaving for more money, that's really difficult to take. But you have to do this work, and you have to dig deeper and see what is it that your company has to offer that really, it is valuable, but you're not valuing it. So, when we look at this slide, does your business understand the expectation for employee experience? Well, I'm hoping that after hearing us today that you do, and that you can convince other people in your company that this is really important, and we've got to be making sure that we are providing this employee experience. Because if you're not, it doesn't even matter if you're the company paying more money, people will leave, because that's the nature of our workforce today. People are looking for an experience at work. They're looking for experiences in their lives, and they're Instagramming it all the way, right? They expect this. That's the nature of our population now.
I think too, Paul, we could add in there, not just does your business understand, does your leadership team understand that this is a business imperative? I mean, that's, I think, where we're really headed with all this.
Yeah, and the other big thing is that just the culture is different, and people are different in the generations they're in, with the way that they communicate and share information. So we need to bring our businesses up to speed. And then secondly, does your business ask questions to discover and understand employee desires? Now, this is a really interesting one, because most of the time people are like, well, how am I supposed to know what they want or what they're thinking? And Ed and I are always like, well, you ask them. Like you ask them and they'll tell you. And in a lot of cases, I guess back in the day, we just didn't want to hear it. It was like, to keep your problems at home, park them at the door, come to work and work. Well, it doesn't work anymore, because the people in the workforce, like the younger generations, like millennials and Generation Z, like there's more blurred lines between work and home, and people want their mental health treated nicely in the workplace, and they want to be able to share about it. And whether we think that that's appropriate or not or whatnot, that's just the reality. So we have to address it. So we need to ask them what they want and listen. And then that way we can start to design this employee experience around their wants and needs and what makes sense with our business objectives. And then, can your business translate these desires into a unified experience vision and make that vision a reality? Now, I asked you at the beginning of the workshop, do you know your company's core values? And, could you write them down? Do you know what they actually mean? Or are they just something that's on the wall? Because this is really important. And in a lot of cases with companies, the core values got worked on at the beginning. When they founded the company, they were posted on the wall. Maybe we've done some leadership training around these core values, but how well does it actually infuse into the whole workforce? And are people living these values? How do you make sure that that's happening? Because that's really key. The people coming into the workforce or into your workplace, they have things they value. They value their well-being, they value their home life, they value being able to contribute in the world and being able to make a difference. And so they're looking for a place to do that. They're looking for the workplace that's going to be the best place for them to express their values so they can align with it. That didn't used to be the case. People were just happy to have a job. But now people will quit because they feel that the company that they're working for isn't aligned with their values or isn't doing good in the world, and they'll go somewhere else. So it's up to us as employers to make sure that we are hiring people in alignment with our values, which means we have to know them and we have to make sure that people are living them. Now, I'm going to jump into culture here. And the culture code, this is something that a lot of companies do, often bigger companies and organizations, is they're taking their culture and they're defining it, they're describing it. And they can actually tell you a story about what their culture's like. And this is something that Ed and I really enjoy digging into with companies and teasing out and then writing about. That's how you create your employment brand, is you brand your culture. The thing is, most people, when they talk about culture of their company, they think, oh yeah, we have a great culture, or it's good, or we have an upbeat or positive culture. But I'll ask you, Ed, to describe that amorphous blob that you always talk about. Tell us
Yeah.
about the amoeba.
Yeah. Culture is, again, let's go back to grade school science class, right? We learned about amoebas, and they just have this sort of shape, and they're all a little bit different and they move around. That's our culture. Our culture, if we don't pay attention to it, will morph into something that we don't want it to. It's inevitable. And smart companies today are paying very close attention to their culture. So much so that they're not only identifying some of the key culture traits that Paul asked you about, and that we're going to share some ideas with you here, but they're pushing it down into their everyday business processes. So I just spent some time over the last couple of weeks conducting training with a client that had identified a new set of values to support their culture. Very, very cool. There was 6 things that they wanted to espouse, and they had done their internal training. They asked me to come in and say, okay, how do we take these values and incorporate this into how we manage performance and reward results? So that culture, this new code of theirs, their new traits, if you will, they're now taking the next step. It's not just on a wall anymore. They're saying, okay, if we're going to live by these things, then we want to hold people accountable to living by them, which means it's got to get into our accountability mechanism, which is our performance review process. And I'll tell you, through the sessions that we conducted with top management, they're loving it. They're loving this idea of taking their code and really simplifying it down to, yeah, we're about production, we're about new ideas and ingenuity, but it's all got to come down to, this is how we are promising each other that we're going to operate to get the results and to take care of our customers.
So when it comes to culture, you don't want to leave it to chance. And so smart companies and companies that are best workplaces, they're defining this. And so I was looking up companies that were best places to work and that had great candidate experiences. And in another webinar we did, we discussed HubSpot. And I keep coming back to them because Well, first of all, HubSpot's a place I turn to for valuable information when I'm doing my research. It's a company that we've used for marketing ourselves. And it's a place that looks like a really great place to work because we can get insight. We can almost take a peek into what it's like in that company as an employee. And they've made that transparent because they want the people that they're attracting to see that this is a good place to work. That's the first promise they're making. And then the second promise is that by working here, you're going to advance your own life vision. You're going to fulfill your own values. And those are the two promises you have to make to your employees now and to the people that you want to attract. So they say that they're creating a company that they love, and everybody involved has to be part of creating a company we love. Therefore, when you think about that, the values have to involve things that make a nice workplace, that make people want to collaborate and come together and be nice to each other. Because if we have other values where, like um, we're cutthroat or we do things at any cost, and it's all about the company making profits at the expense of employees. Well, that's not going to work out with this culture. So it's important to define these things. And what they say at HubSpot is culture is to recruiting as product is to marketing, right? If you have a really crappy product and you market the heck out of it, maybe some people will buy it, but they won't buy it a second time, right? So customers are more easily attracted with a great product. Amazing people are more easily attracted with a great culture. So if you have a great culture and you're not sharing it, you need to start. And if you don't know how to talk about your culture in your company and define it and describe it to people, then you need help. And that's what Ed and I do is we get in there, we interview people, we get them to say what they like about it, and then we define it. And it's not something that you can really do when you're in the thick of it and you have all these objectives and deadlines and quotas and things, because you're focused in management on the things that you need to hit as business objectives. You can't see the culture you're in. So that's why it's good to get a third party perspective.
And Paul, we get asked too all the time, well, what if I don't have a good culture? Am I supposed to market a bad culture? Is that like marketing a bad product? And I see differences. If you market a bad product, people probably aren't going to buy it. But here's the thing: if you have a culture that's not where you want it, one of the things Paul and I like to tell people is, okay, so we've got to work on getting your culture there for sure. But maybe some of the people who are going to get your culture turned around are probably not people that are currently with you. So we've got to market our job opportunities to people who want that challenge. We don't want to hide our skeletons because they're going to see them as soon as they walk in the door anyway. So, if you looked at this slide and you went, great, I don't have a great culture, I can tune out. No, 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 no. We can turn the culture around, takes time, but we can still market our opportunity in the right way to the right people who say, you know what, I get you're not where you want to be, but I want to be a part of helping you get there. And I think that's one of the things I know Paul's a master of is that crafting of that message. And it's not a sales pitch, but it's a, hey, we're going to go after that kind of person, that person who wants to be a trendsetter and a change agent.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to those core values. Like, why did you start the company in the first place? And I guarantee you, when when leadership or when the founders sat down, they weren't thinking, let's start a place that makes people miserable. Let's create a toxic environment. Let's, beat people down till they walk out the door, with their heads hanging low. That's not why we started our companies, right? We had some vision, some mission, some core values that we wanted the company to be founded on. They're just not being lived out. So how do we make sure that they are? So many companies have nice sounding value statements. Actually, I bet you all of them do, right? You don't write a bad value statement. You don't or vision statement, and your mission's always going to be big and lofty. It's just a matter of, are you living it? So if you look at these core values like integrity, communication, respect, and excellence, well, those are really great things that if everybody in your company is doing that and operating with these values, you're probably going to get something good happening.
Mhm.
And the fact of the matter is, most companies aren't having all these things happen. Now this is Netflix, right? They had this in their culture code, and I just thought it was really funny because the next slide shows that these values were on the wall at Enron, right? And I mean this famous huge downfall of a massive company where the leaders went to jail. There was like fraud, and they went bankrupt, and like there were like murders involved and things. It was just insane. Who's living these values, right? And I mean, maybe it's a big lesson that if you don't live your values, you're going to go down. I don't think that's the point. The point is that you want to make sure that if you write your values down, that you really mean it. And so Netflix, what they wanted to show their employees in the culture and in their culture code is that we didn't just make up these values. We want a way of living them every single day. And what I thought was brilliant with what Netflix did is they turned their values into behaviors, right? And I'll just show you an example from one of their core values. And their core value is courage. So, okay, so you put courage on the wall, right? What does it mean? Like, you puff your chest out and you think of the Lion King or whatever. It's like it's great to be courageous. How can I be courageous at work? So then they work together and they designed it. And these are the behaviors that they say that you can you can take on this behavior and do it every day at work, and you'll be courageous. You make tough decisions without agonizing or long delay. You take informed risks and are open to possible failure. So they're encouraging people to go out on a limb, just do it, try it, but learn. You question colleagues' actions inconsistent with these behaviors. So if somebody's not doing doing something that aligns with the company values, you've been given permission to call them on it.
And I always, when I see that one, Paul, I always, wonder um, how many companies, regardless of the value, right, would put that out there. Like, hey, as part of our value system, if one of your coworkers isn't living it out, are you going to call them out on it? Even if they don't have courage necessarily, right? But that's a tough one. But you talk about cultures that are firing on all cylinders, and you will see this going on. People holding each other accountable to treating each other the way the culture says they should be treating each
And it takes guts to as a leader to put the values out in this way
other.
because you've got to be prepared to be called on your actions, right? And then that leads into number four. You're willing to be vulnerable in search of truth and connection. And if there's a blind spot in your own behavior, things you can't see about yourself, you want to learn about it, right? You want people to point it out to you. And I think there might be one more. Yeah, you give and take feedback to and from colleagues at any level. So here you see that the leadership, like they are saying, yes, we are going to walk our talk. And you might think, well, hey, can people hold our values against us, or can they weaponize these values, or whatever? Usually, the people that are going to try and do that aren't living up to other values in the company, and it's really easy to see. So these values, when they're put into action like this, they become a code of conduct, and you don't have to be on top of people for their behavior all the time because now the employees are regulating themselves.
It's true.
So all is
So,
to say, right? I
yeah.
talked about the values and everything. What, why? And we were talking about culture. Well, your culture plus the employee experience, like what it's like to work at your company, that equals your employment brand. And by employment brand, what we mean is this is the thing you're marketing. So, if your product is what you market to sell, your culture is what you market to recruit new candidates, new employees. into your workplace. So if you have a good culture or you market your culture well, you can attract exactly the kind of employee that you want. And that's the employment brand, which we'll be talking about in pretty much every webinar we're doing, but we do have a webinar precisely on the employment brand coming up.
Mhm. Yeah.
So Ed, tell us about
So
this experience age
yeah,
thing.
I mean, so here's the thing. You all are familiar with the information age. We've been in it for 30 some years now, right? With the dawn of the internet and the masses coming online, information came to us at our fingertips, and it's still there. But experts say that we have moved out of the information age now, and we're in what's known as the experience age. And here's what I want you to think about. Just take a look at all of these pictures. There's one thing that they all have in common. People are living life, right? We've got lady up in the top left corner. She's really happy about something in her selfie. Gentleman who appears to be out on a boat or certainly by a lake. Maybe he's fishing or hiking. Lady with her dog. We have people eating ice cream. People that just did a color race. Another guy, I'm really not sure what he's doing. He looks like he's high above a cityscape there, but they're all experiencing something in the moment, right? And so, what does this have to do with what we're talking about? Well, this is how people are living their lives now. Look at how we use social media. Um, Oftentimes now, I'm not just taking a static picture of a plate of food. Maybe I'm taking a mini video of the environment of the restaurant and the flair with which my food has been served, and that's what I'm posting. You really don't find the people anymore. I can remember in the early days of Twitter and being connected to this guy, and literally he would say, "Standing in line for my lunch." Like, why do we care? We've moved on from those kind of status updates into this. Hey, I'm standing in line at my favorite food truck, and I'm so excited because it's down the street from me today. That's different. Now I'm embellishing what I'm experiencing or what I'm getting ready to experience when I get something from my favorite food truck, right? And so this idea of the experience age and how we as individuals are using social media is coming into the workplace. And you will see in a moment when I turn things back over to Paul that companies are now using these types of things. So one of my friends is COO at an organization that's very, very involved in their local community. And the other day, a group of their employees it was a fun run to raise money for a local charity. They didn't just post, "Hey, group of XYZ employees out at the fun run today." What do you think they had out there? It had the picture of them at the beginning of the race. They're all smiling. Had a picture of them at the end. They're sweaty. You can tell they're tired from having run the race, but they're still smiling. They did something for the community. And they talked about how much money they raised. I think it was for a local animal shelter. Okay. You say, well, what does that have to do with their business? Has everything to do, because I see that as a potential employee and I think, they're involved in their community. These people are having fun being involved in the community. Maybe this is a place I want to check out. And so that's the power that we've got at our fingertips being in the experience age. This is not a bad thing at all. In fact, we really have to care about this as business professionals because our businesses have to continually show value. If they don't, we're going to get left by the wayside. So, some people, when I say that, will look at me and say, "Ed, are you telling me that all I've got to do is continue to make my people happy and positive after positive experience?" I said, no, once that ball gets rolling, when we're living our values, when we're living our culture, that will kind of start taking care of itself, right? Because we're drawing people to us that want to live out that culture and want to live it out with the team that we have. And so those ongoing positive experiences, it could be like, oh, hey, today's Paul's birthday, so we're going to take him out for lunch. That may not even be a formal company thing, but our work group says we're taking Paul out for his birthday today, right? You start to see those things happening in good cultures, and good cultures then breed positive experiences that then turn around and reinforce the good culture. So it really becomes that snowball rolling downhill that just gets bigger and bigger and harder to stop. But what it does for us is we have to think differently now about this. Employee experience has to be our business priority, not just employee engagement. Again, engagement's a piece of this, but how do we design an effective employee experience? And again, we're going to expand on that or on this concept in a future webinar, and we'll spend an hour really digging into what does it take to really design and plan out an amazing employee experience. So really, one of the things we've got to look at is what are our business processes, and which ones might be getting in the way of us being able to deliver on the experience that our people want. Do we allow red tape to get in the way, or do we find a way around it? Do we have bureaucratic systems in place that really don't serve a purpose anymore? You wouldn't believe how many times we're in talking with employees and they'll say, well, we've got to do this, this, and this. And I say, why? They don't even know. Well, it's because this is what we do. Well, it doesn't seem to make sense. Yeah, we don't know either, right? Those kinds of things, they're little, but those little things, think of it as the pinprick, right? You prick yourself, and you're like, oh, that hurts, okay? But it goes away. But if you keep pricking yourself constantly, after a while, you're going to get really annoyed. That's what some of these business processes are. They're the little pinprick, but when our people have to deal with these processes that aren't adding value on a regular basis, it starts to wear them down and it negatively impacts their work experience. And I'm willing to bet that it's some of these very business processes that get in the way of us living our values, or they flat out fly in the face of being able to live our values. So we have to take, and as part of the work that we do, is we will going to start looking at the business processes that are either supporting or getting in the way of living out the values. And so the client that I was just with, that we were taking their new values and pushing them down into the performance mechanism, we changed their entire performance mechanism around. How they did it, when they did it, to make it easier for the managers to rate their people and give good feedback. Because the previous process was a pain, and we heard that loud and clear from the leadership team. So it wasn't just about getting the values onto the new process, it was about also revamping the process.
Yeah, there's
So
too
Paul,
many
how does
processes. Well, I'll share what this slide is in just a moment. But there's too many processes that are based in not just the past age, like the information age, but they actually go back to the industrial age, where we needed people to like show up on time so that they could be on the factory floor, like pushing that button or doing that thing to keep the processes going. Right? Those business processes were necessary so that business could carry on. But now, I mean, how many processes actually need a person to be on one spot at a certain time? It's getting a lot easier to provide flexibility, and people coming in the door expect that, right? They expect to be able to fit their lives into work instead of parking their life at the door and coming to work for their 8-10 hours or whatever they're doing. So check out those business processes and make sure that they get updated into the experience age. You're not stuck in the information age, or worse, the industrial age. Now, if you look at HubSpot, okay, HubSpot, it's a lot of their work is virtual because they're a cloud-based platform. You can't even see it. It's in the cloud, right? And people can work from home, work from their computer anywhere. And so you've got their employees sharing things on HubSpot, HubSpot Life on Instagram, because that's who the people out there are. They're doing everything that's Instagrammable. They're taking selfies, because when we take a selfie, we want to put ourselves into the experience. You're standing in front of some monument or some landmark, you take a selfie, and now you're saying, I was there, right? Because I'm in the experience. Well, how do we make our workplace the experience that people want to selfie themselves into? Well, why don't you create a workplace Instagram account or Facebook account where people can share what it's like here? And of course, you have guidelines, your values, your core values guide how people share and post. And yeah, you do have best practices, but this is self-regulating. People put up the experiences they're having at work. So you see a guy over on the left, and his daughter sitting on his shoulders while he's still working. He's getting his work done. There's a whole bunch of people that are together somewhere, and they're all workplace people wearing t-shirts and stuff, but they're having a good time. And these things are being shared so that other people can see, hey, maybe I would look good in that picture too. So that's something that you can put out there, and you need to give people the flexibility to do it because lives are happening on social media now.
It's true. It's a great way to put it, Paul.
So you need to market this employee experience and put it out there. That's what recruiting is about now. So first, ask your employees what they like about working for you. And that goes hand in hand with asking them what they don't like about working for you, because if you want to improve that culture, if you want to make things better, improve the employee experience, you need to get the full perspective. You need to find the good, the bad, the ugly, and do something about it, because people are happy if you're asking their opinion, and they're happy to know that it means something and that something's going to be done about it. And from there, you design your employee experience. You can't design something if you don't know what you're working with. And in a lot of cases, people, like the management, goes and they design something without consulting the employees, without finding what the actual vibe is. And then they spend all this money to impose changes. And it goes right back to, if you don't ask people what they want and then you give them something else, they're not going to be happy. Ed, tell us about that big redesign you saw at,
Yeah.
or I think it was your wife saw at UPS.
Yeah. So my wife was on a shipping dock at one point, and they had totally redone the design of the dock, the flow of traffic of tow motors and whatnot. And the shipping manager had told her that they brought an expert in, industrial engineer, what have you, to look at efficiencies and to redesign things. What they didn't do is they didn't ask the employees for feedback on this. She goes back in for another customer visit several months later. All that work is undone, and the workplace is back the way it was before. And when she asked the manager, like, what happened here? He said, well, it wasn't working. Tow motors, it was not as efficient. We were bogging down. People were crossing over each other, and it was just a mess. What it came down to was, yeah, you brought in a brainiac, and no offense to industrial engineers, but brought these industrial engineers in who just looked at things on paper, didn't ask the people, what is life like here? What are the shortcuts you take? They say if you want to design pathways, especially on a college campus, send a drone up and just watch where all the dead grass is. Because the students have figured out where the shortest paths between 2 points are, right? And so those are the things we've got to look at. Maybe we need to be the drone, right? We need to step back and look at what's really going on. And sometimes that's the value. Don't mean to be salesy here, but that's the value Paul and I bring, because as outsiders, we ask the tough questions. Say, well, why are you doing this? What's going on? When's the last time you asked your people about this, or why haven't you followed up on those ideas?
You're designing the employee experience based on what you've asked, and then bring your values to life in your culture. So find ways of encouraging people to behave in the way that expresses your values. And that may involve actually sitting down as a group and discussing, how do we demonstrate this value? And another really cool thing is to find out, well, what are your employees' values and how do their values get met by fulfilling the company values? And then finally, take all that and put it together into an employment brand. And once you've got this all documented and written up, your culture has a code, then you start marketing it and you put it out there. You use it to shape your job descriptions. So just like Ed was saying, with that not for profit he helped, we actually have a set of guidelines for how to write these job posts. And I mean, you could reach out to us. We'll happily share that with you.
Mhm.
It's just how do you take the boring job posts that everyone's putting up on Indeed and write yours in a way that's going to attract attention? Because it only takes this kind of change in mindset and then writing about it from the candidate experience instead of from our experience so that people go, oh, they're speaking to me and they're telling me it's good here and I want to go check it out.
Mhm.
So putting that together into the employment brand is really what it's all about. And if you do what we said, you can make these two promises to people. And that's the next slide. The two promises that you want to make to candidates and to your employees is that you're going to like our employee experience because we designed it that way. And secondly, our culture provides a great environment for you to live out your values. So not only are you going to like it here, you'll be able to thrive here because the purpose of your life is going to get fulfilled by working here. And if you can make
And
those two promises, like people will want to come into your workplace. Go
yeah,
ahead.
and I mean, I love the connection, right? That one of the things with this whole experience is this second point. Can your employees live out their personal values and not feel like they have to compromise themselves to be successful in your business? And that's why knowing your values, where Paul started off with that, is so critical because they should drive your hiring, your promotion, basically your entire employment life cycle. It should be designed around finding people that match up with your values, promoting those people who are living your values and driving results, and so on. That's where the culture really comes in. That's where the employee experience comes in, and then you can make these two promises that we've talked about today. We're almost at
Yeah.
the top of the hour here, and we do want to take some questions. But we also want your feedback. It really helps us each month to make the next month's webinar even better. And so if you would take just a minute for me, hold your phone up. I'm giving you permission. Get your phones out now. Go ahead and scan this QR code. It's going to ask you 4 questions, real simple questions. You can get it done in about 30 seconds for us. And in exchange for you telling us how we did today, if you give us your email in there, you will get our white paper on designing the employee experience. So it's going to give you some behind the scenes look, if you will, at some of the things that we talked about today and building a little bit more on that. And so when you scan this code, actually the word experience should already be plugged in there for you. Trying to make this as easy as possible for you to give us a little bit of feedback. So again, I'll give you about 30 seconds here if you don't mind doing that for us. And then we will wrap up and get you back on with your day. And as you're finishing that up, if you have questions for us about things we talked about, you can either throw those into the chat or unmute, and we'll be happy to take that question live. So, Paul, while folks are doing that, I'll keep an eye on the chat here. Do you want to wrap up with your final thoughts?
Yeah, it comes down to just making these two promises that, hey, it's good here, and you can be yourself, and you can express your values here. It's really, I mean, you couldn't really do better about creating a diverse and equitable environment. I know there's so many meanings to this, and it's so important nowadays. But I mean, if people can't show up at work and really be themselves and fulfill their values, then people are asking, why am I even going? And if you put that out there, then people will respond to um, the positions that you have open.
Absolutely. So I didn't see anything come through the chat yet, which is great. That's fine. We thank you so much for giving us some feedback on our feedback form and for spending an hour of your busy days with us. If we can help you in some way, or maybe you think of questions after this, My website's right here, and right on the homepage, there's a place you can grab a little bit of time on our calendar. We're happy to chat with you. No obligation, of course, to answer any questions that you might have. And again, hopefully you had a valuable last hour, and that you'll join us again next month. If you got the email for this webinar, you are obviously on our list, and you will get the information on registering for that webinar as well. So until then, we thank you so much. It was great to spend a little bit of time with you this afternoon. Take care.